Hello everybody, welcome back to a World of Warship Blitz video, and I seem to be doing a lot of these videos recently. This is a stats review for a new ship. So Wargaming is certainly putting the effort into getting new ships out, obviously having a whole battleship line with at least 4 ships available, or 5, in the British Tech Tree, upcoming Tech Tree line. For battleships, obviously there's the Siegfried, there's been the Pan-Asian destroyers recently as well, and today, so there's been some Tier 9 premiums come out, and today, well, probably earlier this week to be honest, the first Tier 9 premium destroyer, the USS Benham. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a stats review of the Benham. We're going to have to use a bit of imagination when I'm comparing it with the other ships, because the other ships aren't upgraded. I could go through and upgrade them, I suppose, but that's an awful lot of clicking, and then when the next thing comes along, I won't have those things upgraded, and then, yeah, well, it'll go downhill from there. So what we're going to be doing is obviously comparing an upgraded ship, which premiums are by default, against unupgraded similar ships. So yeah, well, let's use a bit of imagination to bridge that gap. Anyway, so let's go in and do the thing. So the Benham, 1939, it has 2,000 tons displacement, which is pretty destroyerish stuff. Right, here we go. Survivability, 17,700 hit points. 5% citadel protection, so 12.5% flooding and fire resistance, 6% damage reduction, and 4.5% damage reduction. That flooding and fire resistance almost looks at sort of cruiser or battleship level. Maybe not quite, but certainly fairly impressive. 17,700, would expect a lot less from the other ships, the Tech Tree line ships, which aren't upgraded. But let's go and have a look at the Fletcher, which also has a 12.5%. So it's 15,400 hit points. If I get rid of that camo, it's probably even less. And otherwise, the citadel protection, flooding and fire protection, all the rest of it looks very similar to the Benham. So I think the Benham and the Fletcher, because the Benham's a Fletcher class ship, should look fairly similar. The Ugamo, less hit points again, lower flooding and fire resistance, pretty much lower across the board, an easier ship to damage, although being destroyers, they're pretty easy ships to damage to start with. Z46 has almost as many hit points as the Benham. Oh no, it's certainly got more than the Fletcher by a little bit. Not as good at flooding and fire resistance. Citadel protection the same. Damage reduction 4.5 rather than 6, and 4.5%. So the American destroyers are still the toughest. Kiev, the Tier 9, nearly 16,000 hit points, so that's fully upgraded. That's got to be pretty close to the Benham. 5% citadel protection, 10% flooding and fire, 4.5, 4.5. So still the Benham's coming out pretty much on top. Changmu, so 15,000, so that'll probably come in a little bit short, but its stats are almost the same as far as citadel protection and all the rest of it goes. Speed, let's go have a look at speed. We could have done this at the same time, but it's too many numbers to remember, so you get it done separately. And let's have a look at the maneuverability. 35 knots, not that fast, right? Time to full speed, 8.5 seconds. Maximum traverse speed is 10.7 degrees per second with a 3.3 second turn time. So better maximum traverse speed, about 1 degree per second faster, or 0.9 degree per second faster. The Fletcher accelerates faster and has about a 1.5 knot faster speed, or not a 1.5 knot, about 0.6 of a knot faster speed. So it's a little bit faster, but not as good on the turn, which means the Benham as a premium is maybe like the Sims and the Mahan. The Mahan isn't as agile as the Sims, and the Benham is more agile than the Fletcher. Comparing it with the Ugamo, 35 knots, also. Okay, then I'm used to French destroyers, aren't I? 35 knots, which is reasonably fast, or not, depending on what the next one shows us. 8 seconds, so pretty much comparable time to full speed. Much less maneuverability. That is 8.1 degrees per second. and a turn time of 3.9 rather than 3.3. So that is a considerably less agile ship. Let's get rid of the camo on this because it actually does improve the traverse time. Right, and we need to get back here. Right, where are we? Let's go find the turn time. So there, so the Benham. So the Benham's pretty agile. Much more agile than the Z46, which has a faster speed, 37 knots. A slightly slow acceleration, but not much in it, about 9.5 seconds. Similar turn speed as the Yugamo at 8.9 and a slower turn time, so not agile. The Kiev is pretty much similar to the Z46 except faster, so a bit slower to get to 40 knots, but probably not much in it. But 40 knots, certainly the fastest destroyer we've seen, and 8.6 degrees per second, about as agile as Yugamo or the Z46. 3.9 seconds turn time, it's pretty much in the mix, a bit slower than the Benham. So the Benham is certainly the most agile of the destroyers, and I love playing agile destroyers. 37 knots, 8 seconds time to full speed. So the Changmu with its 8.9 degrees per second is pretty standard for destroyers. So the Benham really comes out on top if you are looking for agility. Guns, guns, guns. Right, let's just go have a look at the guns. We'll hide the torpedoes because otherwise I'll get distracted and there'll be too many numbers and I'll go mad. So we don't want that. So let's have a look at the guns. So some things are going to change, like the main battery HE damage and the AP damage, which is the most important thing to note here is they're fairly similar. 3% fire chance, which isn't going to change as the guns are upgraded, nor is the reload time of 3.6 seconds, which is pretty standard for US destroyers. So 3% fire chance, pretty comparable HE and AP damage, 8.5 kilometre range, that'll have increased because of the upgraded nature of the ship. But 3.6 seconds reload. Let's go have a look at this sucker. So obviously the range is significantly less, but it hasn't got those upgrades. 3.6 seconds reload, so same speed on the reload. Considerably less damage, but that'll upgrade. 3% fire chance, but the difference between the HE and the AP is similar to the Benham. So at the moment, the ability, what Benham has over the Mahan is really agility. Now, some of the details of those values may, of course, be slightly different, like it may have more or less hit points or more or less gun damage, but there's nothing to indicate significant differences. However, don't forget that as a premium ship, you can put captains in it. It does earn rewards and silver at a higher rate. And a tier 9 premium will be excellent at training a captain. And let's check out the skills before we finish off, because if it's the same skills that the Fletcher has, it makes it an excellent vehicle for captain upskilling. Anyway, main guns, sorry, let's go back. The Yugamo will have, of course, pathetic guns at 5.5 seconds reload. A similar range, unupgraded, similar damage, unupgraded, 4% fire chance rather than 3% fire chance, 12 degrees per second turret traverse rather than the 18 or 24. So half the turret traverse. So the Yugamo guns are slower to reload, do similar damage, have a slightly higher fire chance, but turn really badly. Z46. Back up to the high turret traverse speed, 4-second reload rather than 3.6. Excellent AP damage, so its HE damage is the lowest we've seen, 4% fire chance, which is better than other fire chances we've seen, but it's still only 4%. And don't forget, it gets a slower reload at 4 seconds rather than 3.6, but that 450 AP damage, that's base, that's unupgraded, that's not too bad. So certainly the Benham is the better gunboat than the Yugamo, but the less dedicated gunboat than the Z46. Let's go for the Kiev, 5-second reload, slower again. It starts out with 8.4 kilometre range, so this is certainly the longest range of the destroyer guns. Starts out at 380 and 420 AP AP damage, HE and AP damage respectively, so that's only going to go up. So it's got the biggest, best guns and 4.5% fire chance, significantly better than any of the other destroyers we've seen. The other thing to mention about this is it has turret reverse speed of 30 degrees per second. This is a knife fighting dream, apart from its agility isn't as good as the Benham. Right, Changmu. Okay, all I can say about the Changmu is that I pressed the wrong thing. That's mainly what I can say about the Changmu. But looking at this, this looks exactly like the Fletcher. So 5 guns, the Fletcher has 5 guns. So the Changmu basically has Fletcher guns, which looks pretty much like Benham guns. Torpedoes. So it's got 4 times 4 launchers. Now we can see those on the side. Before we get too excited about that, they're not centerline mounted. So this is like the Nicholas or the Clemson. Get back here, please. So this is like the Nicholas or the Clemson in that you've got torpedoes mounted out each side. So it's going to have the same total number of torpedoes that it can put in a broadside as the Fletcher. It's just that if you turn around or you're surrounded by the ships, you've got the other side to play with. Let's have a look at the values for these torpedoes. 52-second reload. That's unlikely to change with upgrades. That 3,776 will. 8.1 kilometre range with 56 knots. So not the fastest torpedoes. 16% chance of flooding. It should be fairly similar to these torpedoes. So 52 versus 56. It's got faster reload. Obviously higher torpedo damage, but torpedo upgrades would help with that. 8.1 kilometre range rather than 7.8. So longer range, slower torpedoes. These are 62 knots, the other ones are 56. Get back here. 16% flooding versus 20% flooding. So the torpedoes reload faster. They probably don't do as much damage, or may not do quite as much damage. They don't have the same flooding chance. They go slower but longer. So it's got different flavoured torpedoes, and that really depends on what you like to do. At this tier, though, faster, shorter range, or not quite so extreme range torpedoes may be more beneficial. A destroyer captain would have to tell me, because most opposing ships know how to dodge. How does that compare with Yugumo? Well, it should compare well from a reload time, but everything else is off the mark. So this base damage is 4,100 rather than 3,770. It has a slower reload. It has a 10 kilometre range, which is a couple of kilometres further. It goes 69 knots, which is 13 knots faster, 24% flooding chance, which is a third better again. So, and it has 2 times 4 torpedo tubes. So the Yugumo has torpedoes that eats the Benhams for breakfast, just doesn't have as many of them. The Z46, reload 48 seconds. German torpedoes do have fast reload, 3,500 base damage. That'll upgrade probably slightly higher than the Benhams. Torpedo range slightly shorter. Torpedo speed slightly faster. 14% chance of flooding, so the worst chance of flooding of all of them. But otherwise, the performance of these torpedoes remind me very much of the Fletcher, to be honest, except a much faster reload. Right. Russian torpedoes. Reload is similar to the Benhams. Torpedo damage 3,000, that'll upgrade, but 4.8 kilometre range. Yeah, right. Okay, then that basically says it all. Relatively fast, low chance of flooding, weak torpedoes for basically opportunity shots. So Russian torpedoes down to the ground. And the final set of torpedoes, 2 sets of 5. So this has 5 per tube, which is very nice to see. Actually, the Benham has 4. I think the Fletcher has 5, doesn't it? Yeah, so the Fletcher actually has more torpedoes. The Fletcher does have more torpedoes. Isn't that amazing? 63-second reload, which is, yeah, pretty much Yugumo territory. 3,750 damage. So that's less than the Yugumo. They'll upgrade and is a tube of 5 rather than a tube of 4. 8.7 kilometre range, which is shorter than Yugumo. bit longer than the Benham, but not by much, but much faster torpedo speed at 69 knots. Deep running torpedoes, 25% chance of flooding, so that's what deep water torpedoes do. What you lose on the damage, you make up for on the flooding. So the Benham has a lot of torpedo tubes, but not all deployable at the same target. Relatively fast reload, not quite as good as the Germans. Respectable damage, but slow, longer range torpedoes. But obviously nowhere near the Japanese battleship and a Japanese destroyer. And I've noticed that I forgot to get the Kitakaze, but the Kitakaze is so different, it's not really a reasonable comparison. Right, let's go have a look at anti-aircraft armament. And the most important skill for a destroyer is the surface detection. Anti-aircraft armament, just looking at the numbers, 85 and 33, nothing to write home about there. Surface detection is 6.1 kilometres base. Let's go have a look at the Fletcher. It has AA, it has better AA, and it has 6.3 kilometres base. So don't forget that pretty much if I was outfitting these destroyers, I'd be reducing that by 10%, and then chucking this camos if I could afford it, and obviously the high-grade ore or high-grade coal on top to try and improve that as much as possible. It has similar detection to the Yugamo. The Yugamo is slightly better, but has a whole lot of disadvantages. That means that 0.06 kilometre difference is probably not going to mean much. Z46 is relatively long range spotting for a destroyer's perspective, which is 6.48, is sort of about 0.35 further. 6.6 longest range spotted destroyer, and this is a bit more than the Fletcher, which is a bit more than the Benham, somewhere in the middle. So the Benham, looking at it, looks like it's got that real agility. Otherwise it's very much like an American destroyer, longer range but slower running torpedoes and a lot more of them. With that agility, of course, you can probably flip around and get the other set of torpedoes off, and they reload pretty quick. So let's go have a look at some other facts about this ship. It does come with some special skills: main battery firing range +4, or torpedo damage +3, and torpedo chance of flooding +7%. So there you go, those are both good skills to have. Good luck choosing that. Gee, it's really terrible when there's two things that you really want. Sometimes you get two real dungers and you're looking at them and thinking, oh, I'm not really too interested in either of those, but these are two pretty good skills. So this is like the Mayhan, which is really hard to choose between. +4% firing range, or +10% acceleration, +5% speed, I think. These are not things to sneer at. So these are two really good skills. Let's see if it has any special stuff. Smoke generator, as you'd expect, and engine accelerator, all both fairly standard with the Fletcher. So that's really important, because if you find that you have a premium ship that has stuff that's so different from the rest of the line, it becomes a real challenge. So a good example would be, the Belfast, for example, is the only British ship with radar and sonar is important. So if you beef up the sonar, you've got it only for that particular ship. So you can use it to train up captains, but the risk is that by optimising the captains for the Belfast, you de-optimise them for other ships. Similarly, although that may change with the British battleship line, the Warspite was the only British ship with rapid reload. And then you get the Exeter, which has the precise aiming, and there's not many British ships that have precise aiming, and those skills from the captain's skills perspective are in the same line as, +10% damage recovery. Right, what else have we got before we go any further? The historical camo. The historical camo looks pretty nice. In fact, it looks very nice, doesn't it? But its surface detection -4%, very important. Maximum traverse speed of +4%, torpedo speed of +4%, and torpedo range of +4%. Those are all very nice things to have. What else do we need to talk about? There's another thing to talk about. The missions. So basically that is awesome. Two of those is nice, plus 2,000%. You just drop those in the Nelson, and even if you lose, you're getting a couple of $100 out of it. These 2x Super XP boosters are fantastic. It's a real heart in your mouth moment when you use them, because basically if you lose a battle, well, that can be pretty embarrassing. But they can really help move things along. Let's have a look at mission number 2 is for titanium, which is great because titanium's really rare, but it's also pretty bad because titanium's really rare and it's going to take a long time to get anything. So good luck there. So there we go. There's the Benham. What I may do is upgrade it with the. Do I really want to do this? I suppose I'll probably use it at some point. So what I would. This is not worth getting, by the way. At 24 degrees per second, this is not worth getting. It's not worth getting. Not worth getting. There we go. Right, okay then, so let's have a look at how this may have changed some of those stats, particularly surface detection. Surface detection has dropped from 6.1 to 5.31, which is just, the low yang, for example, is just over 5, so, you know, surface detection's a little bit, surface detection's pretty good. Obviously those slow torpedoes are a bit of a problem, but you'll be able to get pretty close. And what did I bought? I bought the rapid reload, which takes it down to 3.42 seconds, which is pretty nice. I don't know if you buy supplies, I'm not sure if it actually reflects in the stats or whether or not it adds that sort of thing sort of on afterwards. So let's go have a look at auto resupply these suckers. And what do we got? 5.31. I think that is pretty much what we saw before. And 3.42, yeah, so it doesn't seem to make any difference. I think you must get the benefit, but it doesn't show the benefit because it's so ephemeral. Yeah, so there you go. There's the Benham. Sort of, I would probably describe it, if you wanted me to describe it in the shortest possible terms, I'd probably say the Tier 9 version of The Sims. There you go. Complete with really nice looking camouflage like The Sims. So, there we go. A Tier 9, a premium American destroyer, as Wargaming fills out Tier 9 in an awful hurry, I must say. Although, you know, that's probably just as well, because that way it's creating an opportunity for people to find the favourite ships and spread the, you know, spread the variety out rather than just having all one ship, because people get sick of waiting. Yeah, well, that's pretty much about it. I won't play a game in it because I do badly in destroyers, and if I play a game it's pretty much on par that it'll be a pretty hideous sort of a loss. I might have to practice with this and see if I can get a battle out later. So that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.